And you are now live.
Thank you, Ayse. Welcome everyone to this evening's FBS Chat. Really pleased to have two lovely people with me, Sami from Vancouver and Gil, Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio.
Thank
Yes.
God I got that right.
USA.
Yeah.
He hasn't moved, Joe. He's still in the same place.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Has Gil moved? But thank God you haven't. So yeah, Sami, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
For this chat, and I always really interested in how the people that we talk to first came across solution focus, and it may not be your only intervention, but how did you first came across it, and I guess what difference did it make?
Firstly, thank you for inviting me for the chat today. I came across it in my internship year, actually. So I studied in South Africa, and you know how it is when you're in your master's year, and it's just you just learn and do everything your professors tell you, and you don't bat an eyelid, and you just want that certificate signed, and you want to be qualified and done, and go out and do what you hope you've been trained well enough to do. The thing was, I just never felt like I was trained well enough to do therapy right. And how I realized that was I was in my internship. Yeah, I had the privilege of having the most amazing supervisor who allowed me to kind of work in a private practice kind of capacity within a school system. So I was kind of thrown into the deep end right from the beginning. And I was doing the traditional, child-centered play therapy where you track and you comment and you let the child just kind of lead the way with the play. And I felt like I actually found myself kind of falling asleep sometimes in sessions. It just became really boring. I wasn't engaged enough. So especially if the child was really processing something, was having issues engaging with the environment, and you can't really, you're only really tracking I just felt like I was useless. I felt like I was babysitting, to be honest, and I was wasting the parents' money. And my supervisor was very great at kind of trying to keep me motivated, showing me what's going right, but I just wasn't satisfied. And a friend of mine actually introduced me to Jackie van Zifferberg at her workshops. At that time, I didn't know who she was. And I attended her workshop on solution-focused brief therapy. And it just, as she started, it made sense. It just made sense. And as in, that was my natural way of going forward. Maybe, obviously not to the T, because I didn't know what solution-focused brief therapy really was then. But in the way of being goal-orientated, if you had to really make it to the basics and not stick to the principles, because I didn't know what it was then. And it was, you felt like you're moving forward. You're not harping on about all these things that happened before. And it just made sense. It felt natural. And she was very great in training us in terms of lots of practice, lots of hands-on. She did it at her house, and we were in this big, beautiful garden, and you kind of paired up and went. And again, I was lucky. So it was a series of lucky moments. I was paired up with this very experienced therapist who was just so lovely in the way that she encouraged and she put me on the spot a lot. She really pushed me. And me being an intern, I really felt useless anyway. So it was an amazing experience. And what happened straight after that was I got a referral of a child who was having suicidal ideations, and I was petrified of taking this case. So of course I referred them straight on to Jackie, because right now she's become my hero and she can solve the world's problems. And when I phoned her to make the referral, she said to me, "Well, what's wrong with you? Why can't you do it?" And I was like, "What do you mean me? I barely know what I'm doing, and I've been to one workshop." She's like, "Yes, you can." And she kind of just gave some guidance. She said, "Okay, bye, let me know how it goes." And that was it. And I was sort of like, okay. I was petrified in that session, but it just went so well. It went so well because this family contacted me in a moment of panic, and then I was panicking, and there was this whole panic thing happening, and then this child arrives, and this panicked pair of parents, and then they all left, and everything was okay. I'm not saying the problem all went away, but the session went well, and so there we could work. And then I thought, right, I need to learn more. And so I did. I attended every single workshop she had. She got Elliot Connie to come to South Africa a number of times. So I attended that. And and I just got really involved with her and the South African Solution Focused Institute. Obviously, Jackie was doing everything, and wherever I could help and get involved and learn, I just did it. And I never looked back. Sorry, that was really long.
How long ago was that?
That was in 2012.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why did it feel such a good fit for you, even though you hadn't tried it on clients before? It seems like it felt like you'd come home to something.
I think it just was a natural way that I think anyway, but I just didn't know what to call it. You know what I mean? I just didn't know that it had a name, that there was an approach that was in this way. That's how, to me, what therapy should do, you know, and I never understood, even though I'd studied and written the exams and answered the questions, I never really understood why you need to talk about things that happened for years and years and years to be able to move on. I never understood why a 5-year-old needs to come for therapy for 2 years to deal with an issue that they're experiencing with a difficulty. You know, it just didn't make sense to me. I also couldn't understand how people could afford to do that. You know, and that didn't sit right with me. I didn't feel okay taking on a child and the parents going, so how long will this take? And I go, well, very hard to say. You know, even though now I still can't give an answer, but I can say, you know, it just all depends on how we move forward. But the idea is to move forward, you know, so we'll see when we've moved forward and how we feel, right? Or most importantly, how you feel, how your child feels.
So that first session with that child and feeling really nervous, what pleased you about that session? What was different from the way you used to work?
I kind of had, obviously I was new, right? I was didn't know what I was doing. So I kind of followed Jackie's instructions to the T, you know, like the questions that you ask. So what do you hope? And resource talk, you know, so I engaged a lot. And it's amazing because that stuck with me, that resource talk, like trying to find the client's instances and highlights and what they're good at and what they can do is just something that I go to straight away. And every time I feel lost in a session, that's where I go to again, you know. So that, of course, made sense to me. And it just felt like I had a formula in my, and I know that's not how you're supposed to think about SF, you know, but at that point, I felt like I have a formula that works, you know, and this child was responding really well. And I could see, I could see in his eyes, instead of being stuck in his sadness and in his despair, he was thinking. He was actually just thinking instead of being stuck. And that is the first way of moving forward, that he was thinking. And then he started thinking about his thinking, which then really like actually made a little lights go off in his eyes, you know, and then we could work and chat and he could actually disclose information that he wanted to, you know.
That's really it's really interesting because I think sometimes when you're newly trained, it could be straight into, so what would you like, you know, what would you like to see different as an outcome from our talking together? But I've gone back to doing resource talk first because I think it just, I don't know, it gets them engaged in communication for a start because they're talking about something they're passionate about. Then we go to what they want in the future. It just sounds like the right way to go about it. But I mean, sometimes we're trained just to go to, so what would tell you these conversations have been useful? And I think that resource talk is, and it doesn't have to be it's just a conversation, isn't it? It's just, what are you good at? What do you enjoy doing in your spare time? What gives you joy?
Exactly. And also it's, sorry, carry on.
No, go on, that's fine.
And it's also like you really showing interest. I feel like that's when the client is actually feel like I am interested in them. I'm not interested in their problem. I'm interested in them. Like, who are you? Yes, right now you're experiencing X, Y, and Z, and you want to be gone, of course. So what would you like to see in the future? Everyone's going to say, I want this to go away. and I don't have an answer for you. So I'm not going to go there yet.
Mm.
You know, I don't know how to make it go away. I have no idea how to make it go away. But I want to learn about you to see how you've made things go away before, because that's the only way I'm going to find out, right? So
yeah, I think that's very important for clients to feel that you are truly interested in them as a person.
Absolutely, yeah, and not just another client. Yeah.
Or just a label or something, you know, that you've come with this issue and this is who you are.
Yeah.
So after that first session ended and the parents walked away and you felt, what changed for you then? Because that must have been a wonderful experience.
I think first I was just relieved. I was like, he didn't just get up and run out and go, who have you brought me to? He actually stayed the entire session. It felt like it was constructive. The feedback from the parents was kind of immediate, which I was very grateful for. Like, you know, soon after they left, like they got in touch with me again. So that was great. I think it was also very lucky. You don't always get the chance to have that feedback. And I think from then I just knew, like, okay, this works. I can make it work, but I need to learn more about it, you know, and I need to, and I don't know if you guys have experienced this, and I know it's now like a while ago, but after finishing studies, like the last thing I wanted to do is read another journal article, like keep them away. I don't want to read anymore. I'm done. I don't want to do any of that. So I wanted to learn more, but the thought of picking up a journal article or doing that just was not a fun idea. But so what I did was I attended as many workshops as I could. I watched as many videos as I could. I tried to do it in a way that I could be engaged. And then I was interested enough and excited about to pick up journal articles and read them, you know? So that's what changed. And then I made sure I had regular sessions with Jackie where I would go and I would discuss my cases. So whichever one that I felt like I didn't know how to bring it under solution focused track, to bring it on the solution focused track. And with kids, I was finding it difficult at the time because I was sort of like, so how do you do this? There's all these questions and then they don't know how to answer and they're little. How do you do that with a 5-year-old? And then it's just to have it kind of broken down by someone that knows what they're talking about and are so knowledgeable. And then I realized there's just no wrong way of doing this. As long as you are identifying resources, you are seeing that client for who they are and what they can do. And that despite the issue, they're able to do X, Y, and Z, that you're able to identify that, it kind of became easy to switch and shift between the different types of cases that presented.
Well, I have to admit, the first time I asked the miracle question, it didn't work very well.
Oh no!
But I didn't blame it on the model. I blamed it on my not knowing it well enough. So
yeah,
I stayed with it.
I agree with you. It's very difficult. It's very difficult, that miracle question. It takes a while, and doesn't it feel so clumsy because you're going into so many details, right? And I know in my head, I'm like, really, is this necessary? Do you really need to know, like, how does coffee smell? Like, coffee smells like coffee. They're going to think I'm an idiot, you know? And but it does work. But you have to kind of trust it, right? Trust the process and trust your clumsiness and just keep going.
Well, it helped you. I read about it in the beginning that they were inspired by Milt Erickson.
Yes.
And it's a variation of Erickson's crystal ball technique, and I had received some training in hypnosis and had read a lot of Erickson, so that helped me, gave me a pretty good foundation. But it was still its own unique application of all that.
Yeah, absolutely. I must be honest, I kind of stay away from it a lot of the time. You know, I do it more if I have older clients. But with young children, the miracle question, they also find it a bit strange. Some are great, some love it and go with it, and it becomes really cute and really interesting and creative. And with others, it's sort of, they kind of look at me like, "What are you on about, lady?" You know, like we have to change gear.
Yeah, the first time I used it was with a 12-year-old boy.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, yeah. And his miracle is if a miracle happened, the family would live in a mansion and drive a Rolls Royce. And I
All
thought,
right.
that's not the answer I was looking for.
I know. That's the best part with kids, isn't it? The answers that you get.
Yeah, you never know.
And often, and Ayse, I think probably the same. We rarely get that. We often find that what their miracle day is almost quite mundane, but for them is completely unusual. We'd be smiling more. We'd be talking to each other. When I woke him up, he would say good morning. Would that be unusual? Yeah, he normally just grunts. So if you say good morning, what different? And a lot of it is mundane. And what I was going to ask you, Sami, it sounds like when you wanted to experience it more rather than just read about it with these workshops, and so because it is an experience, isn't it? When you do it on yourself as well, when you're asked those questions and you really have to think about it.
You do, and it's difficult. I don't know if you guys have tried it. Have you ever tried to do it to yourself? Like if you're really stuck in a situation and you're like, this is horrible. But also you don't have the patience with yourself that you have with your clients or with a friend, even if you're having a conversation in that way. But yeah, you're right, Joe. It's just, it is about the experience, about watching how different clients respond in different ways, and how like certain clients feel a bit agitated about certain type of questioning while others are not bothered by it at all. And also seeing the discomfort in the therapist, because we just assume the therapist kind of knows what they're doing and they do this a million times a day and you go with the flow, but it's different with every client. And it feels easy and so smooth sailing with some, and with others it's a bit more hard work, right? So
I actually had my first client in the office after however long. Everything's via Zoom, and I came out of there feeling quite rusty via Zoom. I'm like yeah, and I felt really rusty, and it took me a lot longer to ask the questions because I was feeling and seeing the body language. And the child was a little bit aggressive, and he was almost like, I like swearing at my mum, so why should I stop? And I just paused and I thought, and usually I'd be, and it took me a little while. It really did take me a little while. So I asked Matt, my colleague, I said, SF me. So, scale me, do something. I need to kind of start feeling a bit more confident with actually seeing things. So we spent about 20 minutes where he was asking me solution-focused questions.
Yes.
And then I worked out what I needed to do. So that helps, having someone there when you're feeling a little bit stuck to ask you those sort of questions. It is uncomfortable for us because we know the process.
Yes.
But it did work nevertheless for me. So yeah.
No, absolutely. I've also found, going on what you're saying, that sometimes I get a bit derailed when I don't follow, we all have our process in our mind, right? The way you ask your questions. And I feel like I'm off the process. And I'm like, I don't think I'm SFing right now. Even this morning, my 7 a.m. client, I was like, this is not solution focused. And as somebody who's knowledgeable about solution focus, I was like, do you know this is not solution focused right now? And she goes, I know, but it's okay. And then we kind of went back.
As long as it's useful.
Exactly. That's the thing. And not getting too hung up on it, because when I get hung up on it, then I feel like that was just terrible. That was a waste of time and I need to kind of apologize. Where I don't get hung up on it, and like you said, you just continue with the conversation with that perspective in mind, that already helps it get back on track.
So Sami, as I mentioned before we got started, I read your chapter in this book.
Yes. Thank you.
Creative Solution Building, subtitled Solution Focused Brief Therapy Across Southern Africa. And you have a nice chapter in there on using solution focused therapy with children with anxiety. If that's correct.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of things. I have a couple of questions about that. One is you use a lot of externalizing the problem. And a lot of people say, well, that's unique to narrative therapy. So is that but I've seen a lot of solution focused therapists integrate that into solution focused therapy? I mean, was that your inspiration for talking about a Mr. Worry or Mr. Anxiety?
It was more to just make it tangible, to little people. There wasn't very deep philosophy behind it. Then the people I see are concrete, and they need to see, and they need to touch, and they need to, this abstract way of this relying completely on their cognitive ability and cognitive flexibility is just not going to get us anywhere, and they will just get bored of our conversations. So I needed to make it tangible, and it was through Jackie's guidance that I came, like, I don't want to take full credit for this, please. So that she kind of, she said, why don't you try this? And that would, really help. And she kind of did it to me, just like you said, you experience SF, and she did it to me. And I thought, well, this makes sense. And this can actually apply to any age. And so that is really where it came from. It's just so they can have, considering play therapy, and that's where I came from. And I have this beautiful room with all these toys and all this stuff, and now I'm doing solution focus. I don't need any of it, really. It's just nice to aid, and it's just for entertainment. So I had to use it in some way, and it was a great way. And I also found most kids, not just ones that are struggling with anxiety at the time, but most kids are more comfortable chatting when they're fidgeting and fiddling and playing and not just sitting opposite you, right? So it just became. And another thing Jackie had told me is that go with whatever hits you on the nose. So they would go towards whatever to play with and mess around with or destroy or whatever they were doing. And I would go with that. And the externalizing kind of just fitted in so nicely with that. And having that conversation about something that is outside of them as opposed to something that is within them. And so they feel more rubbish than they already do, right?
It's like I often used to hear it in schools. It's not you I don't like, it's your behavior. You know what I mean? There was this and young people felt, well, I don't understand it, because they felt they were just their behavior and that was it. There was nothing else to them. But like you say, externalizing it makes them understand there's more to them than just this outward expression of however they're showing their emotions.
Exactly. And then you can also apply it to any emotion that they come in with, right? And like we know, they get referred for anxiety. We can see the anxiety and how but it's manifesting differently. So they come in with different emotions. That day, they're not worried about anything, but there's all these other behaviors and all these other emotions. And also, I just find it fits nicely with the resource talk part. So after I've learned about them, and you're learning about them every time, right? So when we're digging and we're adding to the list and we're finding out more and more about the interest. So what does that say about you? What would you think of somebody who's able to do that? And so you can do all these things. Yes. Oh, great. And so when you are in control, you are doing all these things. When you are deciding on what to do and how to do it and how to, when Jack is doing it's great, but then worry comes, or then frustration comes, or then scared comes. And then these things happen. Can you notice? And then I think it's just easier for them to kind of stand on the outside and then observe. Oh, yes, that does happen. Then it's more kind of makes it easier to separate and then decide on what to do next that's sustainable, really.
Well, in your chapter, you talk about externalize it in conversation, but then using art, having the child draw a picture of Mr. Anxiety or Mr. Worry, or use different media for pipe cleaners. You're talking about using pipe cleaners to do it as well.
Yes, so anything really, just to do more of what works, right? So if they want to be a superhero, so if Susie identifies as a superhero, and then we make Susie, when Susie's in charge, she's got all these weapons. Well, I've changed that language because that sounds a little bit aggressive now, but but all these all these superpowers to get rid of worry, right? So to get rid of anger, and it's all the things that I've worked in the past. and all the things that she's come up with now. And these are all her superpowers. So, just empowering them and going, and then this thing comes and makes you get into trouble, or makes you do things you don't want to do, or makes you say things you don't like. What can you do then? And how can you remember? And it's easier going, okay, I'm going into superpower mode, for example, depending on the age, than, I must remember that this is not okay. Like everyone's telling them.
So I think when, especially when we're working with younger children, we can have some brilliant conversations, and you're always worried about how will they remember that they're great? How will they remember that they've got the resources when they leave the room? And these connections with superheroes. So I think we were talking the other day where if your best hope was a color, what would it be, and what memories does that bring? Because I guess it's involving more of the senses rather than just a conversation.
Yes, absolutely. So like if you're experiencing it in every way, right? Sort of like that question of what difference does that make? Like, okay, so what are you talking about? What difference does it make? What difference does it make with my relationship with my parents? What difference does it make in the way I talk to myself? What difference does it make in the way I go to school or interact with friends or talk to people? And that what difference would that make is such a good question when you kind of like hone it in onto specific areas and people, and and how would that be, and then what difference would that make, then that kind of snowballs into this thing, this ball of abilities that they have, just by changing that one thing, or not even doing something a little bit different, or thinking about it a little bit different, or doing it a little bit less. Look what a huge impact it can make just for you. Not for mom, not for dad, for you. And then they would notice. Yeah.
Sami, in your book chapter, you also mentioned the importance of working with the parents. Could you say a little bit about how you do that, and why you do that?
Yes, sure. So I don't see how a child can change their behavior or feel different or have all these wonderful tools and utilize it when they don't have the whole system supporting it, right? Or understanding it, at least, of what we're doing. So I usually, depending, each case is different, but typically what I do is I hear the concerns of the parent, either in a meeting or over the phone, and I try understand their best hope. And then I meet with the child, and then I want to understand their best hope, which takes priority to what the parent's best hope is, because they need to feel okay, and they need to know why they're there. And I do always ask them, do you know why you're with me? So they understand. And I can also get them to understand what it is that their parents are hoping for. Not that for you to be a better kid, but actually they would just like you to be happy, because often that's just really what it is, right? Or for you to just enjoy school, or be able to have a good time with your friends. So they can also see that they're not demonized in their parents' eyes, that they haven't been explained to me in a way that is problematic actually at all. And then understanding their best hope and why. And usually eventually they align. They're kind of the same thing most of the time once you start talking. And often when the parent comes to pick up the child, I give them a little brief of, we have a mission this week, and our mission is, we're going to be looking for the times that Brave comes out to show itself. Already Jack has said that Brave comes out when he needs to go upstairs. He can put on the lights and he can go halfway up on his own, or whatever it is. Brave shows up when dad is with him. Brave shows up and he's able to go into the supermarket on his own and come out knowing that dad is outside. So Brave can show up. So can you please help him notice all the times Brave comes, because sometimes he misses it when Brave shows up. So kind of they get pulled into the game or into the task that you've kind of asked them to notice, the things to notice. And that's how I get them involved. And then I definitely do like one-on-one feedback. So before meeting, after a few sessions, if it has gone into a few sessions, or if we're done or whatever, I usually call the parents in, and I do tell the child, I ask mom and dad to come in because I want them to know all the good things you've done, all the things you've been working on. What do you want me to tell them? What don't you want me to tell them? Okay. Do you want to be there or don't you want to be there? So they have the ability to decide. And then, so I can also, in a way, give the parents the solution focused language, just to work on language. So you can say what you want to say, but if you say it in this way, it will be more effective, just so that their toolbox can grow, because that's the only way that the skills are going to get reinforced and the language will become hopefully automatic and just the way we speak, right?
Yeah. Oh, Aisha's thinking, because Aisha does support groups for parents, and it is about that solution-focused language, isn't it, Aisha?
I know, I'm just in awe of Sami right now. Like, Sami needs to join one of our workshops.
Yeah. And the other thing, because we work with families, and often you can ask that best hopes question, or you can ask for a preferred future. And when the child's present and the parents say something that is really, and it has happened where it's been really beautiful. So was it a conscious effort for you to say, right, I'm going to see the parents first, then I'm going to see the child, and then I'm going to bring them together? Because don't get me wrong, most of the time the parents will say, he could be caring, we can have fun together, he's got a good sense of humor, but sometimes and we are aware of this now, we kind of try and separate them when we can. Sometimes that can be devastating for a young person to hear what their parents really think. So when you worked with families, was it always a conscious effort to see them separately first and then bring them together?
Yes, because I mostly want the child to feel okay with the parent being there for a therapy session, because it's their session, so to honor and respect that. So I always keep it separate unless I feel, no, not unless, but when I feel that it would be beneficial for the two to be in the same room so they can each understand each other. Do you know what I mean? To really get that perspective, I always make sure that the child is ready, but directly asking just through the things. And if they say, no, I respect that completely and I just don't engage. And recently, exactly to what you said, Joe, we'd gone through this whole process and the child was ready. It was a teenager and came in with mom. And it was one of those diabolical sessions where mom was just not playing along with answering the questions, but going on her own worries and her own anxieties. And so, of course, like saying things that could not be taken back about the child. And I just found myself, I'm here for the child. And I just sort of stopped her in her tracks. I was like, you're not answering my questions. I think you need to just focus on the questions. I understand your worries. I understand that this is a big deal and it's legitimate, but we're now focusing on this. So I would like you to just, so I'll kind of just refocus it. And I know that's not very solution focused, but very directive. But it was just sort of in saving their relationship firstly, because again, they're going to leave your room and they're going to continue with life. Whatever happens in your room, even if it's the best session ever, they still leave and they go back into the environment that has, that started this whole thing and with a whole lot of raw emotion. So we managed to rein it in somewhat, but now again, we've gone back to separate. So we do separates, and it seems to be more constructive that way.
Yeah. Got it. I was going to ask. So how did we? So you learned the approach in South Africa. How did you go on from specializing in? Is it specializing in anxiety? How did you end up in Vancouver? What was your journey from there?
So how did I end up in Vancouver? Why?
Yeah.
Well, I did what a lot of South Africans do. I had kids and then I realized I wanted different for them than what I could foresee coming for them where we were at. And we had some unfortunate incidences where I thought there's too much control I don't have over things that I shouldn't have to worry about. And now with kids involved, it was just something as a mom, it was difficult to manage.
Mm-hmm.
So then we decided it would be a good idea to immigrate. And we actually were going to immigrate to Australia. But we just weren't excited about it because the immigration process kind of happened. We felt like we must do it. And we had that panic moment, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going to go to Australia because my sister-in-law lives there. And we thought, well, go somewhere with his family. And my brother lives in the States. But I mean, North America as a whole is just ridiculously big. So it doesn't matter. You know, so anyway, but we weren't excited about it. And then my dad reminded me that before we immigrated because I was born in Iran, before we immigrated from Iran to South Africa, he was actually trying to get us to Canada. And he gave me all these reasons why. Right. And so we looked into Canada and we both got excited. And then we were going to move to Toronto because I have family there. I have an uncle and cousins there. And then we went to Toronto and we didn't really like Toronto, but we thought, oh, well, you know, you got to start somewhere. You can't be picky. And about a week before my husband flew out to go to Toronto, he got a job offer in Vancouver. So we ended up in Vancouver.
I haven't been to Vancouver, but I hear it's a beautiful city.
It is. I'm glad we ended up here, I must say, even though I had all my things lined up for Toronto and for the Ontario like things. Looking back, I'm very grateful we moved to Vancouver instead, just weather-wise and beauty.
Weather-wise, big difference weather-wise.
Huge, yes.
What was your first role in Vancouver? Did you just open up your own practice? Did you work for someone?
So I came and I felt completely bewildered because I knew what to do in Ontario because I had investigated and studied and got all the things done. And I was totally clueless when we arrived here. But I was lucky enough through this Elliot Connie's solution-focused university platform that he's got. I was part of the Facebook group and I kind of just put on there, I'm moving to Vancouver. Who on here is in Vancouver? And Beverly Court, she replied and she's like, I'm in Vancouver, and she's become a dear friend now, and that's how it started. And she really helped me. She's a registered psychologist here in Vancouver, and she kind of told me, because I couldn't register here as a registered educational psychologist just because of all the different regulations and things that they have. So I've got a double identity here. I am a school psychologist by day for the school district, where I do psychoeducational assessments and that kind of thing, and helping in schools and with teachers and educators. And then by night from home, I'm a registered clinical counselor where I do therapy and I do solution-focused work with families and individuals and children.
Wow. Okay. So by by day, you're a superhero in schools, right?
I don't know about that.
How open was the school system to solution-focused way of working, Sami? Was it quite easy? Was it?
Well, it becomes it becomes part of conversation, right? So I'm designated a number of schools. And so with those schools, I didn't tell them what I was doing. I just engaged in the conversation. I just engage my conversations, just begin like every day with, so what are your best hopes? Or if there's a referral by a school team, again, it's like, what are your best hopes from the assessment? What are we trying to get? Because usually, as you guys know, when a student gets referred for a psychoeducational assessment, is because we are concerned about certain things, right? So me telling you that this individual is below average in reading is not going to be a shock to your system, right? You're going to predict that that's how it's going to be. But what is our hope from doing this whole big thorough assessment, putting this child through this whole process? What are we going to do with the results? What are we hoping that we can put in place for the student that we can't do now or as effective? And that just gets the conversation to be more rich without them feeling criticized of like, why do you think the student needs assessment over the student, and just helps them prioritize better as well. So honestly, I didn't introduce it as this is the solution-focused way of doing it. I just did it.
and nobody complained.
Nobody complained yet. So hopefully we'll carry on like that.
Now, Sam, you also obviously specialize in dealing with kids with anxiety. You also work with clients with trauma history.
Yes.
So, what's your experience with using solution-focused therapy with clients with trauma?
What I noticed is that it's recovery becomes quicker because you bring their attention to recovery is happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're moving forward. Because I think the traditional way of, well, this is how I was trained, was that, you talk about the trauma and you talk about the trauma and then we talk about the trauma some more and then just one more time just in case. And to me, that just re-traumatizes the poor client. Where with solution focus, you're respecting the trauma. It's very real. It's very much there, but you're noticing the coping and the how. And in that moment when this terrible thing was happening, whatever it was, you managed to survive and now be here to tell me about it. How did you even do that? Is just, I think the curiosity in tell me your skills that you use to do that already allows the client to be on the path to recovery so much faster and so much more constructive. And also so much better in a way when they do have a flashback or when they do have an instance where they go into a panic due to the trauma, that they can go back to the resource of like, this is how I coped last time. This is what I'm going to do because it worked. You kind of giving them their tools that they already have again. And you're just saying, look, this was a tool you used. It was great, So I think it works so well just from that perspective, but that's how I use it. You guys might be thinking, what are you doing, lady? But
if it works, do more of it.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I like what you said about that. That sounds good. Yeah.
And I think with the anxiety, because we get a lot of young people that have anxiety, and it's that fear of the future, known or unknown. We don't really know, but we're just worried that something really awful is going to happen. And it's almost like the only way to prove that isn't always the case is either past successes or you push yourself to do something that you may really find uncomfortable. Do you know what I mean? And that's what I think is the difficult part is how do I know I'm going to this event and I'm really, really scared of it. How do I push myself so that, because often the vision they have of things going wrong doesn't always materialize. It actually goes quite well. But it's getting them over that fence. How do you get them over that fence, Sami? I'm really into, because I want to. do you know what I'm saying, though, Gil? It's really kind of, how do you persuade someone? Look, you've been through this 100 times and you've coped and you've managed, but they still have that. Yeah, but what if X? It's almost overthinking.
So, I did this, like, what if question. And it's, what if is a great warning bell. And then you say, thank you for coming. Now, please go away. Right. So what if is good to like prepare you. Right. So to prepare you to think this could go wrong. So it's not going to be a surprise when it does go wrong. Right. But but let's see. So how did you prepare for it? If this is to go wrong, what is the worst case scenario? And how would you cope with it? Okay, so now you know what to do. But has this happened and how many times? So it's great. I'm sorry, there's a service outside that's making a huge noise. So it's sort of like, so now we've prepared for the worst. You kind of are aware of it, that the what if has brought that to your attention. You're aware of it. But if that's all you're going to pay attention to, you're not going to have space left to enjoy the event, for example, right? Or to get what you can get out of it. So you're now prepared. So you've got a tool in your toolbox on what to do in case it happens. But now you're not going to, but now we're not going to pay attention to that, because then you forget to pay attention to the things you want to pay attention to. What do you want to pay attention to? So that's like a thanks for coming, but now go away. I'm aware of it, but now be gone, so I can move on with what I want to do. That's one way. You're going to have to ask the clients whether that worked or not. For some it did, and for some less so. That is one big way of doing it. And also, like, just going back to the fact of, has it really happened and how frequently? What were the circumstances? How is this situation different to that? You know, I had a student that wanted to go. She was signed up for a summer camp and she really didn't want to go. So she's 15, 16. So she feels she's too old to go to a summer camp. She got signed up against her will and now she must attend. And she didn't want to go because she's too old to go and it's going to be horrible. And she just wants to do her art. And now she has to engage with these people and she doesn't know. So then we spoke about, well, have you done this before? She goes, yes, no, I go to them every single year. I'm like, okay. So what made you attend last year? No, well, I was made to go. I was like, and how was it? No, it was okay. Okay. So what made it okay? But then she obviously gave me a list of the things that were not okay. And we spoke about, well, how did you make it okay and survive? And knowing that about this is how you did it. How are you going to go every day to camp this year? So that's not an issue for you anymore. Because you did it already. You resolved it. You solved it. You dealt with it. So now you know what to do about those situations. Are there any new issues that you're concerned about? And she did come back and she said she had a great time at camp. So that was another way. I don't know if I answered your question, Joe.
No. Because often what I hear with, you know, when we ask, well, how did you manage to do that? Well, my cousin was there and he made me go. I didn't really want to go, but I went anyway. It was almost like it was some other outside force making them to go, even though they enjoyed it.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And got through it. It's like, yeah, if my cousin wasn't there or this person did persuade me to go, I don't think I would have gone. And it's a hard one because we're playing this game of, you've done it so many times before. All worst case scenarios haven't really. And often I find that they put thoughts in other people's heads about they're going to think this about me, and it.
Yeah.
Yes.
You don't know that. Do you know what I mean? So I really admire the work that you do because I don't find it frustrating. I just sometimes get really stuck because they have so many different thoughts about what's going to happen, what might happen, what might not happen.
Oh yes. Oh, I get stuck all the time. But then I tell them, okay, I'm stuck. I'm kind of running out of ideas and you need to help me think.
Yeah.
Because every idea I'm coming up with, a suggestion, it's not sitting well with you. So help me think. We got to help. Because I don't know where to go from here. So we can try this and we can try that, or you can give me another idea. Can we spend some time thinking about that to kind of bring them in that I don't have a magic wand. So we're going to need to think together because I'm running out of ideas.
Intervention I learned from gestalt therapy years ago, working with adults. When I was feeling stuck like that, I would say, would you be willing to do an experiment, which is very gestaltish?
Yes.
And so, I said, okay, would you be willing to change seats with me? And I'll be you, and you be me. And they're intrigued by it. So, oh, okay. And so then we change, and then I will say the last few sentences he or she said as the client, with a problem, asking for advice. So you're the therapist. Now respond. And it's amazing what they've come up with. What they're doing is they're taking the seat of the therapist to kind of enter that persona, and they're giving themselves solutions for how to solve their stuckness. So really it comes from them ultimately.
And you give them so much power. I love it too. It gives them so much power, doesn't it? Like they're a child sitting in your room and now you're getting up and you're going, come sit in my seat, and now you do this.
They go, oh wow, I'm a therapist.
I've done that quite a few times with clients pre-COVID. And I said, I'm so bored being in this position, as the SOBI therapist. Why don't we just swap? I'll be you, you be me, and I bet you're not going to be as good as I am. And then watch it. And obviously I'll do this after they've met me a few times and I'm becoming a bit familiar with the questions. And it's amazing, absolutely amazing, especially when you start pretending to be that child and and like,
you do that so well, Ayse.
I know. That's me in the mornings. Morning, John. Don't talk to me. But it is. Gil, I love it because it actually does work. If you know your client very well and know that you can take that risk and kind of practice that, it's brilliant.
No, it is.
Yeah.
I'm going to try it more. I haven't done it actually. I need to do it.
And sometimes if me and Ayse are in a session together, we do the behind the mirror, but with the parent in the room.
Oh, right.
And the family in the room, yeah.
And just say what we appreciated about them. But they can't respond because they're not here. Right? Pretend you're not here. We're going to talk about you.
I love it.
We're just going to gossip about you.
Yeah, we're just going to gossip about you and tell you what we appreciate about you as a family.
Well, it's kind of like doing a reflecting team.
Yeah, it's
having a reflecting conversation.
Yeah.
So what have you noticed about the family today that's put a smile on your face, Joe?
Yeah, anything like that. And
they must love it. You must get such a good response.
Oh, at first they're a little bit uncomfortable.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then you kind of glance over and there's especially when you deliver training, and we did it with the delegates on last Friday before. So what did you think of the youth offending team and blah 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 blah? And they're like, oh, this is new, more compliments. It was it's quite nice, but it's nice for the families to kind of leave on that note feeling a bit more empowered and that we've noticed their strengths outside of the session because they're not there.
Yes.
And then I'll just turn around and say, why are you still here? Get out.
I love that.
Yeah.
So we've got time for 2 more questions, guys.
Well,
who's going first, Gil or Joe?
I was going to ask.
Joe asked the best question.
Don't say that. Don't give him a big head, Gil.
Well, it was kind of 2 things really, because I always there are clients that teach us so much about ourselves, and we're proud of the progress they've made rather than what our contribution was to it. So is there a client that sticks out in particular, and what you want to do moving forward? What's left for you to want to achieve, in a sense?
Okay, so your first question was about, is there a client that stands out in terms of the work that they've done? Yes, there was a young lady that came to see me during the summer, actually, with all this being a teenager and living through a pandemic and then having to go back to school again. And there was just a whole myriad of things happening. So obviously anxiety elevated, feeling low, not wanting to feel like that, wanting to feel like herself. She just took to those questions so well. You know, she kind of, at first she did say to me, she goes, you ask very strange questions. Don't know if I like them. I was like, okay. And then she kind of sat back and I felt like I did nothing. She did her own therapy all by herself. I asked questions and she would go from the one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And she got up 30 minutes through. She goes, I'm done. And she walked out. And that was that. And the parents messaged and they said, you know, that went really great. She seems like she's in a good space. And if we need you, we'll let you know. She's really happy right now. So she was happy with. And I literally thought, I'm like, she just needed somebody to kind of ask her, so what are your best hopes? We kind of went through those basic things. And what difference would that make? And how would you know? And then she just went and the self-therapy talk. And she goes, I'm done now. And she got up and she left. I was like, okay.
So it was single session psychotherapy.
I didn't know I could do that, but yes, she did it by herself. I didn't do it. So it was beautiful, and I thought this really does work. And my husband is an engineer, so you must know. He goes, I was telling him about it. He goes, I'm sure we can build a robot that can just imagine that you have these robots that ask these questions and then get these, like, obviously highly cognitive individuals that can kind of think and go on their own without too much prompting to just do self-therapy. That would be then accessible to everyone. So it's like, go away. No. Be gone. Go work with your machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just funny you said that, because when we spoke to Eve Lipchik, they were talking about briefer 1, briefer 2, this kind of almost computer model, and she said it wasn't for her because you lose that humanity. You lose that humanity. Oh.
Exactly.
And moving forward, what's in the pipeline?
Oh my God, I don't know. I feel like I'm reinventing the wheel, having moved countries. So I don't know. I'm hoping for my practice to grow. I've somehow managed to do a lot of talks and conferences and stuff in the 3 years that I have been here, which is fun, but I also find it quite stressful. But I always say yes because it's fun and it gets me. I feel like that's the way I learn and I stay on top of things. Otherwise, I would just kind of go with daily stuff, and you kind of go on that hamster wheel. So it's one way of avoiding that. So maybe I want to say I want to do more of that, but I also don't. So I don't know how to answer that one. But
I know what you want to do, Sami.
What do I want to do?
I will remind you of what you want to do. You would like to join one of my workshops.
You forgot about that, Sami.
She wants to do it, but she's too embarrassed to say. So I will send you an email. You are more than welcome to join the workshops.
Thank you.
And we can deliver one together.
Okay. That would be very interesting, and I'd probably say yes. Thank you.
You already said yes. You just don't remember.
I don't remember. I think you might be right. I don't know.
Gil, tell Sami how persistent I am, Gil.
You can't say no to Ayse.
Okay.
It's just impossible. And then after the pandemic's all over and we can go back to traveling freely, you'll end up going to London and doing a workshop in person with Ayse.
Oh yes, absolutely. I would definitely do
that. Yeah.
Would love to.
My one last question is, are there any questions that you'd like for us to ask you that we haven't?
I can't think of any. To be honest.
It's another way of saying, is there something that we haven't asked you about, but we haven't covered, but you wanted to get in while we have our time together?
No, not really. I think you guys covered everything, and I love how collaborative you guys are, and how because I've watched some of your chats and all the different content you cover, and how the sharing of knowledge and information. I love that. It's just. And I think that's why I always end up doing workshops and things for no particular reason than just to do them and share information and learn from others. And I love the passion you guys have with the families that you work with. It's really great.
What about your this is your website going across the bottom, is it, Sami?
Oh yes, it's just
what can people find there? What delights?
It's just a real brief explanation of kind of the services that I offer in terms of therapy with families and children, and there's some workshops that I have available that I've done in the past, and just how to reach me, really, and a little brief description of what solution-focused brief therapy is, just because I think it's important for clients to know what kind of therapist or therapy method to have a bit of familiarity before coming in. Also prepares them in a way of what to expect, because it can be scary going into therapy. It's a very vulnerable space to be. So just feeling a little bit more what to expect, I think, is good.
We were asked once to sum up solution focused in one sentence.
Don't we like Sami?
Yeah, no, I think I said something like co-constructing the client's preferred future. That was my.
Like that's a good one. That's a good one. I want to steal that one.
Sami, I was quite proud of myself.
It's like just moving forward To me, it's just solution-focused brief therapy. If I had to summarize it, it's just moving forward in a way that's good for you.
What do you think, Gil?
I love it.
You have to say that.
Off the top of my head, I would answer that with a question. In terms of one sentence, what is solution-focused therapy? And my question would be: so tell me, when are there times that you don't have the problem? Or the problem's just a little bit better.
Yeah.
So it's really future oriented and future and exception oriented. I don't know. Put those two together.
Yeah.
That really, to me, separates it from everything else.
There is so many sentences that we can kind of string together to describe it, and I think it does depend on how you practice the solution-focused approach as well.
Yes.
Yeah, we could use one sentence with a lot of semicolons.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
It can go on forever.
Oh.
It can actually go on forever.
But since it's brief therapy, we should be able to come up with a brief answer.
A brief, yeah.
True.
Hope.
Hope. There we go.
Yeah.
Hope.
is very future oriented.
Exactly.
Oh, you guys have been amazing. Any last words from you guys before we draw to a close?
No. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for your participation. It's been great knowing you and getting to know your work and love your passion.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much, both of you. Thank you so much for giving up an hour of your time. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm thinking about my clients now in a slightly different way of getting over that fence that we were talking about earlier, because that's where I get sometimes stuck. And it's lovely to hear you say, Sami, yeah, I get stuck too. Let's ask the client. Where do we go from here, guys? I love it. Thank you so much. It's been,
Thank you. Yes.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Sami, you've inspired me yet again, and I'm sure you've been inspiring many, many, many people. Please do look at Sami's website or get in touch with us if you'd like to get in touch with Sami. She is absolutely incredible, and I met her very, very briefly, and I was like, I need to get to know Sami. She's brilliant. She's inspiring, as everyone who has been on FBS Chat has been to us, especially our Gil, FBS Gil.
Oh.
Yeah, we love Gil.
I feel almost like I live down the block from you or something.
I know, right? Gil, put the kettle on. Movie night, popcorn, let's go. So do join us for another FBS Chat next week, and we have quite a few chats next week, including with Peter Sarbo. So that's next week, and from the FBS team and for our lovely guests, good night.
Good night.
Good night.